Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go, big lump? Oh, right, okay, let's go. You've had enough. Another Ducati Monster episode, and this week back to my roots of being outside, purely because we're in quarantine at the moment and looking at four walls, especially the workshop four walls, is probably a bit too dismal at the moment. So back in the garden, I'm feeling better enough to work in the mould again. And the last place we left it was I'd done a split divide out of a polypropylene sheet, covered both sides but only covered one side with one coat of, or half a coat I should say, of fibreglass. Completely gel coated it, and what I have done is I've actually done 2 coats of gel coat on the second side and 2 coats of PVA release agent, so I'm guessing that side will probably be easy to take off. Nonetheless, I am anticipating that the clay is probably going to bond a lot more onto PVA release agent than the mould will. So here is part 2 that you've all been waiting for creating a rough split mould. Bear in mind, this is a rough mould for a rough prototype that I'm going to smooth out before creating the proper mould. Here it is. Just to pause here, just so I can actually show you what I'm doing. I am pretty much gutting it like a fish. Just put this in there. Completely destroying what work went into it to fabricate it out of clay and everything. There's nothing to show for that. But the mould is here. And that's one good thing. At least, you know, we've got a mould out of it. And from what I can see so far, it's worked a treat. Obviously, we've got all these things now. See this stuff here? Just peels right off. There's a lot of clay on there. So what I found, and I knew it was going to happen, is that the clay, the adhesive properties of the clay, it's quite strong. It's a lot stronger on this release agent than it is on the actual foam itself. So when I've been trying to split the mold apart, the clay's been coming off the foam and staying on this release agent. but that's fine. No issues there. Because this release agent just peels off. Job done. I've got a nice shiny inside. And you can see imperfections in the clay, and I knew that was going to happen because it wasn't a perfectly smooth job. What has worked out well are these little edges here. These have worked out brilliantly. Super sharp. That is really sharp. And this edge here where the fuel cap goes, that's worked really well there. You can see it's starting to break apart here now that the clay's been released from the line. And the line here, you can see, is actually really smooth. Well, the join, I should say, really smooth there. The only thing I've got to do now is take all this out the back, and then the whole thing will split apart. I've got a little recess there for the seat, and that's worked out well as well. But before I go any further, flip it over, drill some holes into both sides. I know we've got key points and anchor points all the way throughout it, but I'll drill holes anyway just before I go any further so that I know exactly where the bolts go. So I spent a bit of time cleaning all this up, and as you can see there's a lot of clay left. Best way I can do this is to actually wash it, and then when it dries all this residue comes off, but that is pretty much my main job now. Everything looks smooth, everything looks fine. I mean, are there any areas of concern? There's a little edge here that's just missing a bit of gel coat, but that's fine because we can put filler wax there. When I come to actually making the proper mould, obviously there'll be a lot more layers of gel coat. There'll be a lot more care put into it as well when we're doing it. But that's an easy fix. Let's clean all this up now. And here it is. Dude, I'm really happy with that. There's a few little bits of clay, there's a few channels of clay that I need to sort out. A bit of clay in there, there's a bit of clay down here, but you can see the majority of it's out. And there's a bit of dust there, it's a bit of a rough patch. But all this can be smoothed out on the actual prototype tank, which will then be the proper plug for the mould. You can see a few light areas there where there's only one gel coat, but I'm actually really happy with that. And it does go back together quite neatly. See, there's registration marks here. It should line up, and there you go, it clips. Perfect, it doesn't actually move from that. Wobbles ever so slightly, but there are screw holes dotted around, and that is it. Now these bits actually turned out surprisingly all right. There's a bit of foam left on it from the recess, but it's not going to go that deep, and at the end of the day I'm going to be cutting it kind of 1 mil past where that is, so these aren't really that important, but they have turned out well. I was kind of debating whether I would just cut holes in the actual carbon fibre afterwards, but seeing as that's worked, I'm just gonna stick with it, carry on with it really. And that is it. This is the final mould. As you can see, it's a lot lighter than obviously the tank is, but this is one half, all done. And this, if I could do it without cutting my hands, this is the second half. And there are two things that I do need to actually do. Well, one thing I should say that I need to do before I actually make my prototype tank out of it. I have got a few little bits I need to clean out. You can see there, it's all clean. There's a few recesses in there, and that is to be expected where there is a bit of clay still in there. So I just need to go through it with a fine, you know what, I might go through it with a toothbrush actually. Get into all these edges, get the clay out, and that's just a laborious job that I don't want to bore people with on here really. And another thing I need to do is I will bond it back together, and I need to cut it. So I'm going to take an angle grinder, cut it neatly, sandwich it together, cut it neatly, and obviously with these bottom bits as well, cut it to where exactly the tank sits. I've got that black line of gel coat on the inside and know exactly where I need to follow. So that is my job, because at the end of the day when I make my new prototype, I won't actually know where to cut it, what size or anything like that. If I do it now, job's done, and I can just cut it flush with the edge, and then that's it. I don't need to worry about it. But it clips on really nicely. There we go, I don't know if you can see that. That is it. Perfect. Let's put it back. So the next step, next week's video, in fact I'll probably try and do it this week. This week is a bank holiday weekend. We get Friday and Monday off because it is Easter weekend. Doesn't feel like it because we are stuck in our houses. We're not allowed to leave our houses pretty much unless it's vital that we have to go to the shops and everything, but it's, you know, it's all for the greater good. So we're gonna live by that. So I might even start making the prototype for this. So by next Friday I'm hoping that there'll be a prototype video. If not, there will be a video on the Myco 490. I've started disassembling the carb for that, cleaned it all out, and I'll see if it starts after 8 years. So that could be next Friday's video, depends which one comes first. So until next week, stay safe, everyone stay safe, especially in these really strange times. Stay safe, keep everyone else safe as well by obviously keeping your distance, and don't forget, if you like what you see, subscribe and follow me on Instagram as well. There's extra stories on those of how this progresses. So until next week's Friday's episode, bye bye.